All right, so everybody probably knows by now that Jordan Peterson's license to practice clinical psychology is under threat. This comes in as he made some unfavorable tweets about Elliot Page, about a swimsuit model who is obese, to say the least, or I don't know. Is that being nice? I don't know anymore. But he said some things about them. The more chilling thing is that he said things about the government, and then his license got put under threat. That is the more telling thing of this situation. But what I'm going to do for you today is play two clips. This is an hour and 19 minutes, 20 seconds in, where he just talks about what he's done. Then I'm going to play another clip at 1 hour, 1 minute, 10 seconds, which explains what he's going to have to go through because of what's happening currently, because of all the complaints. Let's get into it. Oh, and I'm going to have to skip over the thing he says about Elliot Page, because he says something kind of graphic. And because of all of you beautiful people, I am now under review by YouTube to get monetized because I hit, 1,000 subscribers. So thank you for that. But the overseers are overseeing me currently. So I got to tread lightly. Let's get into it.
Clinical psychology license is in jeopardy because you have opinions about politics that they disagree with, which is a very dangerous and bizarre turn of events.
Well, it's your fault, actually. I told you, I think, a week or so ago when we talked about this. Okay, so let me give you some background here. So
I want to know how it's my fault.
I will. I'll tell you. A lot of things are your fault, as it turns out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the College of Psychologists has basically levied what are equivalent to about 13 lawsuits against me simultaneously. Now, the reason I call them lawsuits is because they're actions undertaken on behalf of a complainant. Now, the complainant can be anyone anywhere in the world who complains about me for any reason. They don't have to be former clients. They don't even have to be anybody I've ever met. They don't even have to have met anybody I've ever met. So,
So it could be someone online.
Well, it is. All this is pretty much, all these complaints are someone online. None of them are my clients, although half of them claim to be falsely. And the college didn't throw out their complaints despite that. So, which is really quite interesting.
And what are the complaints?
Well, okay, let's see. The one complaint is about the tweet I made about Ellen or Elliot Page. I guess that was something like fat shaming. I don't remember exactly what the charge was. And then I criticized Justin Trudeau and a former staff member of Justin Trudeau and Jacinda Ardern. I made a joke about her. I was going to New Zealand, and the New Zealand leftist press was freaking out, and I made this joke about bringing my alt-right trolls to New Zealand, and then I put in parentheses, or maybe they're just, ordinary people who are trying to clean up their rooms. So apparently that was casting the profession into disgrace. And then they submitted, one complainant from the U.S., submitted the entire transcript of our last discussion. So, I don't know how to defend myself against that, because apparently everything I say, and apparently everything you say too, is bringing the profession of psychology into disgrace. And I think they're most upset in that case about my comments about the inadequacy of climate models. And so, what that has to do with my clinical practice is questionable, to say the least. And so, anyways, does that cover it?
Yeah, it seems.
It's absolutely wild that a whole transcript of a podcast is what they're using to review, like part of what they're using. So it's basically a little bit of tongue-in-cheek type of tweets, and then some opposing the government, and then a whole transcript of a podcast that they're just like, you possibly shouldn't be able to be a clinical psychologist. And it's literally based on his views. I think that is such a dangerous place to be in, because this is like he can't be canceled because his following is very strong and they stand by him in the things they say. And a lot of them, have the same values and ideals, and they think the same way. So nobody's going to condemn him based on tweets that he's made or opposing the government, or not even the government, but just a certain party in the government, not even a party, just a couple of people within that party. So nobody's gonna cancel him based on that. Everybody's gonna stand next to him pretty devoutly, and now what they're doing is trying to take away what makes him who he is. So they think, because in my opinion, taking away this license from him may be one of the best things that could happen to him. And I know this is going to sound weird when I say this, but if you take away his clinical practice, if you take that away from him, he'll still be able to write books. He'll still be able to have lectures. Like, nothing is really going to change for him. Still going to have the podcast, still going to have his streams of income. The only thing that's going to differ is that we're going to go from calling him a clinical psychologist. What do you call him? We're going to have to call him a philosopher. He's going to become like Plato. He's going to become like Socrates. It's going to make him even bigger because now he's not going to be boxed in by clinical psychology. That's just my thinking. I think sometimes things happen to you and people think like, oh, this is the worst thing that could happen to this person. And it ends up being the best thing. I mean, look at what happened to him when he was first on Joe Rogan. He was under threat of not being able to be a professor anymore. He was almost pretty much fired almost. And what happened? It was the greatest thing that could have happened for him and millions of us. I'm just saying this might be another one of those crossroads where he all of a sudden gets it taken away and boom, a whole new level of stardom gets hit. Yeah, or not even stardom, influence, because influence is actually more important than stardom. Most of these stars are just puppets, but influence, that's a whole different matter. So now I'm going to go into the other clip. It's sitting at 1 hour, 1 minute, 10 seconds. Here it is.
Communicate better according to your experts. It's like experts by what criteria? Exactly. What's a social media communication expert? You got any documentation that even exists as a field? And how do you know that if you have that social media expert train me that I'm going to be a better therapist? There's no body of data that suggests that in the least. So I'm not going down that route.
We should explain that because
so I've already been sentenced, right?
Yes.
This isn't a threat by the college. This is what the situation already is. I haven't been hauled in front of their disciplinary board yet, but they've already convicted me of disgracing the profession and sentenced me to an indefinite period of re-education. And that's the second most serious punishment that they can levy against a professional. The first is to take away the license. The second is to undergo this retraining and to publicly announce the necessity for that, which they've already done in my case. And so now I have to sit down with these experts at my expense for an indefinite period of time until I'm trained properly, whatever the hell that means, by the criteria of the so-called experts and the college. And that isn't pending an investigation. That's already in place.
It's such a wild request, too. Retraining, just even the way they phrase it, it's so bizarre, so Orwellian.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's your fault, because it's the whole transcript of our last conversation. I don't imagine they'll be that happy with this one. So, but the other reason I'm pursuing it, and to the degree that I'm able to keep my head clear during this process, because it definitely makes me angry and really made me angry over Christmas when I was spending Christmas going through the minutiae of all these bloody lawsuits, trying to figure out what the hell they were up to, instead of, taking a bit of a break and having some time with my family. And so I was very upset about that. But to the degree that I'm upset about it, I'm not doing it right, because this can't be personal, can't be about me. Part of the reason that I want to pursue this, and part of the reason we're pursuing an objection to what they're doing on Charter of Rights grounds in Canada, is because they're interfering with my freedom of conscience and speech. And again, it isn't even the case that the reason that that's a problem is because it's about me. The reason it's a problem is because the colleges in general, like the regulatory boards of professionals, are doing this to everyone. Lawyers, physicians, teachers, massage therapists. There's all these licensed professions. And if you're a licensed profession, the government establishes a board of your peers to regulate conduct of the professionals. Now, and in a functional time, all that happens then is that generally the people who get in trouble with their own clients, right? With the people they've been dealing with directly. And then the board steps in on the side of the person who's been injured by a pathologically practicing professional, and fair enough. But now it's been weaponized, and it's been weaponized as a political tool too. And it's not like activists don't know that. And it's so preposterous because I have 20 million people following me on social media, and God only knows how many views of my videos, for example, or the interviews you and I have done. It's tens of millions. And how many people complained? 20 out of millions? And then the college didn't have to pursue those complaints. They have to investigate them. So I don't know what they're doing now because, of course, they've been inundated by thousands of complaints about their own behavior. So I have no idea what they're going to do about that. But they didn't have to investigate. They chose to investigate. And as I said, they did that despite the fact that half the complainants claimed to be my clients and weren't. So what we have here is we have 13 people who complained about me hypothetically doing harm to someone they didn't know, to someone who they didn't know anyone who knew as a consequence of things I said on social media. And that all of them, not only were they fourth-hand claims of harm, which no psychologist would ever claim that a fourth-hand account of harm constituted a valid measurement. So the bloody college is violating its own measurement standards by even pursuing this. But so not only are they based on fourth-hand information and then an outright lie, which is they were clients of mine, they're also predicated on the assumption that it's okay to go after a professional for expressing political criticism. Because literally half of them are, well, I said something about Trudeau. I said something about one of his top aides. I said something about Jacinda Ardern. I said something about an Ottawa city councillor in relationship to the trucker convoy. I said something about climate. Every single one of the complaints is political. And so why is that a problem? Well, see if you can figure it out for yourself. That'd be the first answer. And the second is, I have a friend in Canada, a very well-known physician, international reputation.
Now, the friend that he's going to talk about actually just can't stand up against the system because he does not have his house in order, which means that he doesn't have enough independent sources of money coming in. But aside from that, the thing that he said that stands out the most is, try and figure that out for yourself. It's like he said something about the Trudeau, if you don't know, if you're in America, he's the Prime Minister of Canada. The other people that he commented on are all people who are part of Trudeau's party, which is the Liberal Party. And then he commented on the trucker convoy. If you don't know what the trucker convoy is, it was a protest against the pandemic, everything that was going on with the pandemic. I don't even know what I can say there and what I can't. It's crazy. But it was somebody who was against that, and he spoke against them and how they behaved during that time. It's pretty wild that this is able to happen because, again, like he even said, these are people that don't even really know him. They're just upset by him. It's literally like this board of psychologists. It's like they have a cancel button, or like a report button. You know how you can go on Instagram and just report things. You can just report. It's like somebody did that on Jordan Peterson's life, or maybe not even his life, but his life's work. Like, he worked hard to become a psychologist. He's a good psychologist. He's been one for decades and decades, more than a lot of us, longer than a lot of us have even been alive. And it's like a bunch of people who are just upset on the internet are able to just say report. And they take stock of that as if he's done something wildly wrong. I can't help, and again, not to be a conspiracy theorist, not to put on a tinfoil hat, but I can't help to think that this is happening mainly, if I had to give a percentage, I'd say 80% because he was speaking, again, not to say against the government, but he was speaking about the government and the way that they conduct themselves. And that's a very, very cold world to live in when you can't even, when you're this intellectual, And anybody should be able to speak about what they want to speak about. But when you're this intellectual, you have this much of a following, and you're trying to speak your truth, you're trying to stand up for truth, you're trying to walk in integrity and speak on things that matter, and that puts you under threat of losing things that you've worked for decades. I don't think anybody should be subject to that, whether they're on the left or the right, or they're in the center, or I don't agree with what they say, or I do agree with what they say. I don't think anybody should have to go through that. I just think it's a lethal part of society that's only grown out of control in the past 5 years. And I don't know if there's anything that we could ever do to get it in check. The only thing that we could really do as people is start standing by the people who it happens to. And I know it's a hard ask, but it's we're going to have to stand by the people who it happens to who we don't agree with. Not just the people who we do agree with, not just the Jordan Petersons, but the other people who, they don't fall under the political spectrum that you fall under. They don't fall under the racial or this or that. They don't have any of the same views as you. We're going to have to stand up for those people too. That's the only way that something like this stops. It's the only way. And yeah, it's just sad that it's happening to Dr. Peterson. You can see how shocked he is, right? You can see it right there, right there. You can see it. He's very shocked. Look at him. He's but yeah, I just wanted to play that for you guys. There's going to be some more Peterson clips because this podcast is absolutely incredible. He says a lot of very telling things. He said that he's never been healthy on an episode of Joe Rogan ever. So any episode you've ever seen, he wasn't in good health. And now he's feeling like he's at 80%. And I love to see Jordan Peterson at 80%. And I can't wait to see what he's like when he's at 100%. But other than that, I'm out. Peace.